At Audio Advice, we are huge fans of Rega turntables. They have great sound, are easy to set up, and are made so well they'll run for decades. The last couple of years have been very busy for Rega as they've completely updated every model in their lineup. The RP1, RP2, RP3, RP6, and RP8 all were updated to planar models. The final model to upgrade was the RP10. We had one of the very first planar 10s in the country at our 2019 Music Matters event and loved the way it sounded. It is truly a technological marvel. When the Planar 8 first came out, we compared it to the Planar 6 and felt it would be fun to compare and contrast the Planar 8 to the new Planar 10. They do share some similar technology, but there are also some big reasons to jump up to the Planar 10. Make no mistake, the Planar 8 is one amazing turntable. When we heard it for the first time, we were blown away. The same thing happened when we heard the new Planar 10, but even more so. We'll go over all of the different components and help you understand how they might impact the sound in your system. As always, when we compare turntables, we start from the bottom up. So let's dive right in. The Planar 8 and Planar 10 share the same technology for their isolation feed. On both tables, you have 3 feet made from Santoprene with aluminum reinforced trim rings. Santoprene is a great material that prevents external vibrations from making their way into the table. We've played both the Planar 10 and Planar 8 very close to speakers with tremendous deep bass and never had the slightest trace of acoustic feedback. A turntable plinth is normally the big flat part of the turntable all of the components are mounted to. When the Planar 6 was introduced, it was the first Rega to use a new material called Tancast 8. This is a super light and stiff material which makes it ideal for a great turntable. On the Planar 6, the Tancast is completely covered with a high pressure laminate. In the new Planar 8, Rega reduced the mass of the plinth even more by making it just big enough to hold the components. They only put the high pressure laminate on the top or bottom, leaving the edges of the Tancast 8 exposed. You can barely even see the plinth with the platter on. This type of design reduces mass a lot. We felt this contributed to the Planar 8 really outclassing the Planar 6 and bringing the music even more to life. There was not really anything Rega could improve on with the design of the Planar 8 plinth, so the Planar 10 has the exact same plinth. On both models, they have a new solid brass central bearing assembly, and it's actually anchored to the bottom of the plinth on both. But when you move to the Planar 10, you can see the whole assembly is much beefier, which should result in a better bearing. It's anchored more firmly. And this is actually trickle-down technology from their Naiad turntable, which is their $45,000 no-holds-barred turntable, which is kind of cool. When a company builds something that high-end, they learn stuff and they can put that in their less expensive, more affordable products. Starting with the Planar 3 and up, Rega turntables use a system called double bracing. On all of the tables with double bracing, the brace resembles a structural beam in that most of the mass is cut out. This design helps the phono cartridge and Tonearm combination pull out more of those tiny little details in the record groove. With the Planar 8, Rega uses a phenolic material sandwiched with aluminum for the upper brace and a solid phenolic lower brace. With the Planar 10, they use the same ceramic material for the top brace as the Platter and then have the phenolic lower brace. It has even less mass than design used with the Planar 8 and is more rigid. So this is the sub-platters on both tables. This is the one for the Planar 8, and here we have the Planar 10. Both models use another technology that kind of trickled down from the Naiad, which if you can see closely, there's these tiny raised points on the sub-platter which the actual outer platter sits on. But if you compare these two again, you can see the Planar 10 platter is much beefier, it's much heavier, and it anchors differently to the main platter. One thing we noticed when we went to put the sub-platters back into the bearing assembly, they both have just amazing tolerances. But as you can see, the Planar 8 settles down pretty quickly. The Planar 10 is even a tighter tolerance bearing, and it's going to take a couple of minutes here to settle back down, it looks like. So what these great bearings get you on the Rega tables is just no noise coming up from the platter. And that translates into a much quieter background noise. As you can see, this guy is still settling down. That is very impressive how tight that tolerance is. The plinth on both of these tables, the Planar 8 and Planar 10, is the exact same height off our table here, But here we've got the bearing well of the Planar 8. You can see how deep it is. And now we'll move over to the Planar 10. You can see it's a much deeper bearing well. Pretty much since Rega was founded, almost all of their turntables have used what's called a float glass platter. And as you move up into the higher performance turntables, it consists of multiple layers getting thicker as you go to the outside, which gives it a nice flywheel effect. So if something's kind of weighted around the end, when it starts spinning, it's going to spin at a much purer pitch. Here we have the platter for the Planar 10. You can't see this, but this is a whole lot heavier than the platter on the Planar 8, and it's weighted around the edge for that nice flywheel effect. This is actually made out of the same material that guided missile nose cones use, and it's diamond machined to be just super flat, even flatter than glass. And it fits onto the table just like this. The motor on both turntables is Rega's classic special 24-volt low noise synchronous motor. With the P10, the motor is actually hand selected and fine-tuned to the power supply, even more so than on the P8. They still do that on the P8, but the P10, as they say, is even more fine-tuned and finely matched. On Rega's Naiad turntable, they used a 3-belt system, and on the Planar 8 and Planar 10, it's a dual belt system. But this belt is just super cool, the history behind this. Rega had been wanting to come up with a great new material for their belts that had more consistent elasticity. So they worked with a bunch of chemists actually to come up with this new material called EBLT. Then they had to figure out how to cut the belt as precise as possible so it would be perfectly round. There was a team in the UK that makes high-end parts for Formula One racing cars, and they have these special machines to make them with. So Rega used those people to develop the way to cut this belt. That is just really getting into it to offer the best possible performance. Planar 8 uses an external power supply called the Neo that was introduced with the Planar 6. The Neo uses digital signal processing to create what is pretty close to the perfect drive wave for the motor. The Neo's in a separate box, which we really like because that separates any electronic noise from the turntable, and it has a pretty long cord with it that you can, it looks like it'll go about 6 feet away from the turntable, and it gives you the advantage of electronic change of speed from 33 to 45. The Planar 10 goes one step further. The power supply for the Planar 10 is called the PL10 PSU. It's physically much larger than the Neo and feels more like a high-end audio component. The PL10 PSU starts out getting a perfect square wave from a super high stability internal crystal. Then Rega uses DSP to manipulate this signal into a perfect and never-changing power source for the motor. We love the fact that this system is going to give you a pure signal even with pretty bad power coming out of your wall. The Rega assembly team then fine-tunes each PL10 PSU to the low noise precision motor in the Planar 10. Once again, as you move up, you're getting technology and craftsmanship that improves speed stability. When you add up the bearing, subplatter, spindle, motor, belts, and motor power supply, you can see there's an incredible amount of effort put into great speed control in both the Planar 8 and Planar 10. The Planar 10 just takes most of them one or more steps beyond what the Planar 8 does. We're getting towards the end of our comparison, but this is one of the most important differences between these two turntables. The tone arms on both these tables are outstanding, but the tech Rega put into the brand new RP3000 tone arm is just over the top. The job of a tone arm is to hold your cartridge steady on the record so it can pick up all the little modulations in the record groove. These modulations are moving in all directions, while at the same time each groove gets smaller in diameter and closer to the center of the record. So a great tone arm has to hold the cartridge perfectly steady while allowing the arm to have zero friction as it moves toward the center of the record. If your tone arm has any play, friction, or wobble, some of those tiny modulations your stylus is picking up will be canceled out or not even picked up at all. That's why tone arm bearings are one of the most important parts of a tone arm. The Planar 8 comes with the RP800 arm, which is a fantastic tone arm in its own right. The amount of information we hear coming out of the record grooves with the Planar 8 and their Affetta 2 cartridge is just scary good. However, the RP3000 takes things to a whole new level. The bearings in the RP3000 are so precise, Rega can assemble it with actually no adhesives at all. They're machined down to 1 micron in accuracy. Both tone arms are made out of machined aluminum and offer Rega's classic 3-point mounting system for the cartridge, which assures with a Rega cartridge it's perfectly in the right place. However, mass is reduced greatly in the RB3000 arm, which you can tell just by the size of the counterweight used. This arm is much lighter and less mass than the RB800 arm. And you can tell when you play around with it, the bearings are just amazingly precise. You set the tracking force in both ways by zero balancing the counterweight, then setting the force with the gauge here on the side. However, we really like the way the Planar 10 lets you apply anti-skate. The Planar 8 has a thing under the arm that you slide back and forth to adjust it for the right amount of anti-skate. However, with the Planar 10, it's this little tube you pull in and out, which is really cool because you can super fine tune it. And if you have an anti-skate test record, you can just nail that and get it dialed right in. The cables from the Tonearm on both turntables are identical. They're very high quality cables soldered directly into the Tonearm, and they have a locking connector, which is very nicely done. While both turntables come with the option of no cartridge, most people wind up getting the Planar 8 with the factory installed Affetta 2. You save several $100s with that package, and Rega's just introduced a new Affetta 3, which is based upon their top-of-the-line Alpha-line cartridge that has a new type of stylus tip. So this is the most popular option we've seen for the Planar 10, and you save several $100s getting that combination together. The fine line stylus tip on the Affetta 3 does extract even more information out of the record groove, so you'll hear more information just from the cartridge difference between these two tables. The dust cover is pretty cool on both these tables. It's exactly the same, and there's a little hole in the back of the plinth that you just line this up with, put it over the center spindle, you're all set. It's a great dust cover. So which turntable is right for your system? Obviously, neither of these is a budget turntable. Both are high-performance works of incredible craftsmanship. But you have to remember, the sound starts with your turntable. No matter how great the rest of your system chain is, if the information does not get pulled out of the record groove, no amount of great gear will allow you to hear it. If you are considering the Planar 8, we suspect you have a pretty good audio system already. To our listening, the Planar 10 takes how good the Planar 8 is and just takes it many steps forward. The better your system is, the bigger these differences will be. Don't forget, we have free 2-day shipping on all orders, as well as lifetime support and hassle-free returns. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, stop into our stores in Raleigh or Charlotte, or chat with us on our website. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. On our channel, we review high-end audio gear from the best brands from all around the world. And thanks for watching.